Hello race fans, welcome to another video. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and make sure to leave a like, comment, and share this video with a friend to show your support. We're currently on the road to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so every little bit of your support helps. Today we will be talking about the Darlington Cup race, aka the throwback race where only half the field showed up with tribute schemes. And like I said in my previous video where I went over the Xfinity race, you can attribute this mostly to the fact that teams and sponsors just don't feel the vibe anymore. Maybe they feel they don't have enough of an incentive to show up with a tribute scheme year after year. I mean, for the first couple years they were all in because of the novelty aspect, but as the years go on and the novelty wears off, it's understandable why the teams would slowly lose the motivation to participate. That being said, the concept itself is far from dead. NASCAR just needs to rework it in a way that revives interest in the industry as a whole. Brad Keselowski made a great point on Twitter that Throwback Weekend is not just about bringing out a good paint scheme. It's about connecting the past with the present and giving the fans a glimpse of the good old days of the sport. And fans do appreciate that. I mean, every year they show up wearing some old t-shirts and hats from the 80s and 90s because it's one of the few times on the season they can actually go to the racetrack repping some old vintage gear without feeling too out of place. So as long as the fan response is positive, Throwback Weekend will not go away. It's just a matter of, again, NASCAR must find a way to innovate around it to keep the concept fresh. I mentioned yesterday the possibility of the Throwback Weekend being moved to another historic venue like North Wilkesboro or even the Spring Martinsville race, which I wouldn't be opposed to it. But if NASCAR wants to keep it at Darlington, which I think they would prefer, they should look at adding some kind of incentive. I know NASCAR, every year they run the Throwback Weekend, they hold a Best in Show fan vote where the fans can vote for the best throwback scheme of the race. Maybe NASCAR can look at giving the team with the best throwback an additional reward, small cash prize for example, kind of like what Xfinity does with the Dash for Cash. Just some ideas being thrown around that caught my attention, but anyways, on to the race. William Byron got the pole, no surprise there, but Ryan Preece alongside him in second is a guy I really want to talk about. He's in a streak of 3 top 10s in a row, and he keeps the momentum going with a stellar qualifying effort at a track that RFK has been quietly successful as of late. And speaking of RFK, they picked up right where they left off, putting all 3 of their cars in the top 6 by the end of stage 1. Unfortunately, stage 2 did not go as smoothly for them. As a matter of fact, the entire complexity of the race turned on its head when, during green flag pit stops, Keselowski spun in turn 4 after losing a lock nut on his right rear tire. Now, fortunately, the wheel did not come off, but the caution still came out a couple laps later. Thanks a lot for that, race control. So this shuffled the running order around as the drivers who had stayed out and were yet to pit were able to not only pit under yellow but keep their track position. And this was significant for some of the bigger players of this race, specifically the Joe Gibbs racing cars, as they were able to go from mid-pack all the way up to the front. And JGR as a whole struggled in stage 1. Not only were they unable to hold any sort of track position, they lacked the long run speed towards the end of that long run that ended the stage. I'll say they were saved by that caution Carson Hocevar brought out with 8 laps to go, because Christopher Bell and Chase Briscoe, they would have been lapped otherwise. Even Denny Hamlin, who was running in the top 10 for a good portion of the race, he was dropping like a rock in the closing laps of that stage. Bell, he dropped down to about 18th at the end of that run. And considering how important track position was in this race, that yellow changed everything the more I think about it. Again, just like Martinsville last week, the same issues we saw in that race were prevalent here. You couldn't pass anyone unless you were on a long green flag run with a different tire strategy. But yeah, that caution literally changed the entire race, because before that yellow, the teams that were making the most noise up front were RFK and 2311. The moment that caution came out, yeah, 2311, I mean, Reddick was still there, but Bubba Wallace started fading out, and then the RFK cars, they were just nowhere to be found. I mean, Chris Buescher managed a 6th place finish, but Keselowski and Ryan Preece, they were never able to regain the track position. Preece finished mid-pack. Keselowski, due to his issues, finished a couple laps down. Also, Hendrick Motorsports Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, they struggled for an entirety of the first stage. Kyle Larson crashed out on lap 4 after getting loose off turn 2. And while he did return on the track thanks to the DVP no longer being a thing, his race was effectively over because he was well over 100 laps down by that point. So Hendrick was also struggling in stage 1. The only guy who was carrying the torch between Gibbs and Hendrick was William Byron, who, like I said, won the pole and was on cruise control for the first 80% of the race. And no, I am not kidding. William Byron led the first 243 laps of this race. And he also swept both stages and had the fastest lap to boot. And this was not because he was the guy to beat. Far from it. It was a combination of winning the pole and having the good fortune of not losing any track position during the Keselowski Yellow. Sadly, he wouldn't have that same luck in stage 3 when his crew chief Rudy Fugle once again decided to keep him out on the track longer than his main competitors who had already pitted, potentially trying to wait it out for a caution that unfortunately never came out. This caused him to lose the lead with no chance at recovery, not only because he was in dirty air now, but due to the speed difference of this Gen 7 car being very minimal, which made it all the harder to pass. Now, credit to Ryan Blaney for trying to make this interesting, and now that I think about it, Blaney has been the only driver who has been able to consistently pull this off, that is, passing cars under green with relative ease. Sure, he was on a better tire strategy than the rest of the field since he was one of the last guys to pit on that cycle, but still. We saw this at Homestead before he blew the engine. He led the most laps on that race. We saw it at Las Vegas where he got to battle through several setbacks just to get back in the top 10 before he got wrecked out. He was making huge gains at the end of this race as well, at one of his worst racetracks, might I add, because entering this race, Ryan Blaney had never scored a top 5 at Darlington. I don't know what that 12 team has found. I don't know what Team Penske as a whole has found, because it's not just Blaney. Joey Logano and Austin Cindric have also spent a lot of time up front, even if they don't have the results to show for it. I'm inclined to say that 12 has been the fastest car on this opening quarter of the season. Even if the results would suggest otherwise, they just have been hit with a lot of engine and mechanical failures, and when it's not the car, it's a freaking pit crew messing it up. And Blaney, he would have run away with the win after passing Reddick for the lead with 4 laps to go, if it wasn't for Kyle Larson once again junking himself off of turn 2. He wrecked 4 laps into the race, and he did it again just for good measure with 4 laps to go in the race. Go figure. And the moment it happened, I already knew the NASCAR fanbase would put their tinfoil hats on and start pointing fingers. Some people saying that Bubba Wallace slamming the Larson off turn 2 to cause a yellow because he was behind the 5 and give his teammate Tyler Reddick a chance in overtime. Other people saying that Larson backed it into the 23 on purpose to cause a caution to give his own teammate William Byron a shot at the win. And look, both of those statements are just straight up false. You could clearly see it on the replay when they showed it that Larson checked up in front of the 23 because he saw Reddick hit the wall in front of him. And since Larson was in front of the 23, like right in front, Bubba Wallace could not see the 45 hit the wall and could not check up like the 5 did. But the most baffling thing I saw on Twitter was some fans, mostly the salty Ryan Blaney fans, blaming the damaged vehicle policy or the lack of a DVP, saying that Larson had no business being on the track because he was quote-unquote slow, which again is just blasphemy, and that he got no chance at gaining any more positions because he was so many laps down it wouldn't even matter. Like, what? These are the same fans, mind you, who wanted the DVP gone last year. We finally got the DVP gone, and the one moment, the first time the DVP, Larson would have been out of the race if the DVP was still in place, but because it's not, and he was like out on the track 100 plus laps down, now people are saying, oh no, actually bring the DVP back. Like, what? This is why NASCAR is very wishy-washy with their decision making. It's because you fans don't know what you want. It's your fault NASCAR is acting like this, and they're just changing the rules year after year. It's because you fans don't know what you want. And you're also, to that I might add, you're also missing the big picture. Because even if you don't have a chance at points during a race, you still want to try your darnest to come out on the track. Not just for the fans or the sponsors, but because the information the team gains from the laps you turn on the track, it can be of great use for future reference. Remember, NASCAR is returning to Darlington later in the year for the Southern 500. So it's in the team and Kyle Larson's best interest to try and run as many laps as possible in this race. Even if it's a lost cause results wise, because you never know. Maybe the data from those extra laps he ran today or on Sunday might make a difference for the Southern 500. Just some food for thought. But anyways, caution comes out, race goes into overtime, but not before a final round of pit stops. And this is where Blaney loses the race. Disappointing, but not surprising. His pit crew cost him time every single pit stop today. Denny Hamlin, on the other hand, was the big beneficiary. Lightning fast pit stop, perfect exit off pit road. It looked like he went over the speed limit for a moment on his exit, but NASCAR said it was clean. And of course, a great restart where he put 2 to 3 car lengths on second place in just one set of corners to bring it home for the second race in a row in what has got to be one of the more anticlimactic races in recent memory. I'm not gonna lie, I expected more out of this race. I expected more out of this throwback weekend as a whole. Xfinity was the main highlight, and even then, that race was, at best, decently good, but not great. There was literally nothing to keep me engaged all race other than William Byron potentially leading every single lap, and even that went down the drain in one of the more underwhelming ways possible. He just lost the lead on a bad pit strategy. There was nothing really exciting or memorable about this race other than Ryan Blaney trying to make something happen only for his pit crew to mess it up immediately after grabbing the lead. He may not have won the race, but he at the very least got that first top 5 at Darlington, and he's also my driver of the day. If only for that last green flag round before overtime, because that was the only time I was 100% paying attention to my screen all race long, and it was because of Ryan Blaney, so shout out to him. He is the only reason this race gets a C- when I otherwise would have given it a D. But anyways, that's it for today's race review. Subscribe, like, comment, share. We're on the road to 1K, so every little bit of your support helps. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next race.